In 1956, 17-year-old John Carter was part of the resistance against school integration in Clinton, Tennessee. He was photographed holding a sign protesting, stating that he would not attend school with black students. This event occurred during the Civil Rights Movement when segregation was still prevalent in American schools. Rosa Parks is booked by Montgomery police after refusing to give up her seat to a white man on a bus on December 1st, 1955. Her arrest sparked the Montgomery bus boycott, led by Martin Luther King Jr., which lasted 381 days. The protest led to a Supreme Court ruling that declared segregation in public transportation unconstitutional. On September 13, 1926, the Ku Klux Klan held one of its largest marches in Washington, D.C. It is estimated that over 40,000 members participated in the parade, which passed in front of the Capitol. This event took place during a resurgence of the group, which used such demonstrations to strengthen its political influence. On April 9, 2003, the statue of Saddam Hussein was toppled in Baghdad, marking the end of his regime. Civilians used sledgehammers to attack the base before U.S. soldiers pulled the statue down with an armored vehicle. The scene was broadcast globally as a symbol of the Iraqi government's collapse. Charles Manson is escorted by police after his arrest for the 1969 murders. Though he never personally killed anyone, he commanded followers to commit brutal crimes, including the murder of Sharon Tate. The group also killed Leno and Rosemary LaBianca, leaving messages in blood on the walls. Sentenced to life in prison, Manson became one of America's most infamous criminals, influencing both pop culture and criminal investigations. Elizabeth Eckford walks through hostile crowds on her first day at Central High School in Little Rock, Arkansas, on September 6, 1957. As one of the Little Rock Nine, she and 8 other black students were the first to integrate the school, following a court ruling. Initially blocked by the National Guard, they required federal escort to attend classes, challenging racial segregation in the United States. In 1959, Fidel Castro visited the United States after leading the Cuban Revolution. President Dwight Eisenhower refused to meet him, delegating the task to Vice President Richard Nixon. During the trip, Castro stayed in Harlem, where he was welcomed by supporters. The meeting with Nixon lasted 3 hours, but failed to prevent the U.S.-Cuba split, which later led to the Cuban Missile Crisis in 1962. A child dressed in a Ku Klux Klan outfit approaches a black police officer during a protest against a Klan rally in Gainesville, Georgia. The officer holds a riot shield, and the child tries to touch it upon seeing their reflection. The photo documents a moment of confrontation between protesters and police during the 1960s when the Klan still held rallies in the United States. In 2007, Britney Spears experienced a public breakdown marked by impulsive actions, such as shaving her head and attacking a car with an umbrella, following her divorce from Kevin Federline. She was also seen driving with her child on her lap, which led to her losing custody of her children. Despite this, the year was also significant for her career, with the release of Blackout, one of her most beloved albums by fans. In 1960, during a funeral in Havana for victims of an explosion, Che Guevara was photographed by Alberto Corda. At the time, he was president of the National Bank of Cuba and was observing Fidel Castro's speech. His serious expression was associated with the Cuban government's accusation against the United States for the incident. The image only became iconic after his execution in Bolivia in 1967. Hugh Hefner poses with Playboy bunnies in the 1960s when the magazine dominated the market. Founded in 1953, Playboy sold more than 7 million copies per issue at its peak. The brand expanded into clubs, casinos, and licensed products. In 2016, the iconic Playboy Mansion was sold for $100 million. Interestingly, China, which never had a Playboy edition, generates millions in sales of branded merchandise. The first issue of Playboy, released in December 1953, featured Marilyn Monroe on the cover and unpublished nude photos of her. Hugh Hefner bought the images from a pre-fame photo shoot for just $200 without Monroe's knowledge. The magazine sold over 50,000 copies, launching an empire. Interestingly, Hefner was buried next to Monroe in a tomb he purchased for $75,000. On August 31, 1997, Princess Diana died in a car crash in the Pont de l'Alma tunnel in Paris. The vehicle was fleeing paparazzi when the intoxicated driver lost control. Only one passenger survived. The global impact was enormous, with millions watching her funeral. Interestingly, Diana had predicted she would suffer a suspicious accident, fueling conspiracy theories about her death for years. During the celebration of the end of World War II in 1945, photographer Alfred Eisenstaedt captured one of history's most iconic moments: a sailor kissing a woman in Times Square. Although the act was not as romantic as it appeared, the image perfectly conveys the joy and relief that swept the world. On November 4, 1979, more than 50 Americans were taken hostage at the U.S. Embassy in Tehran by Iranian students supporting the Islamic Revolution. The crisis lasted 444 days with failed rescue attempts. The hostages were released on January 20, 1981, the day of Ronald Reagan's inauguration. The event influenced U.S. foreign policy and heightened tensions between the two countries, affecting diplomatic relations for decades. During the infamous fight between Mike Tyson and Evander Holyfield, Tyson was already displaying erratic behavior. In the third round, he bit off a piece of Holyfield's right ear. The match continued, but Tyson repeated the act on Holyfield's left ear. This incident remains one of the biggest scandals in boxing history. Inside the White House Situation Room, President Barack Obama and his team closely monitored the events leading to the capture of Osama bin Laden in 2011. This image captures a moment of intense focus and tension as the details of the operation in Pakistan unfolded in real time. Rumors about a possible affair between President John F. Kennedy and Marilyn Monroe persist to this day. One of the most talked about events was Monroe's performance of Happy Birthday for Kennedy at Madison Square Garden on May 19, 1962. The photo shows Kennedy, Monroe, and Kennedy's brother, Robert, right after the performance. This is one of the few images of them together, fueling further speculation about their relationship. On March 7, 1979, weeks after the Iranian Revolution, Supreme Leader Ayatollah Khomeini announced that wearing a veil would be mandatory for women in the workplace. The next day, on International Women's Day, tens of thousands protested in Tehran, including photographer Hengame Golestan. Despite the massive mobilization, the mandatory veil was enforced, and since then, Iranian women have continued to protest against the country's policies. Children play with water from an open fire hydrant on Avenue C in the Lower East Side, New York, during the 1970s. The practice was common in the city's hot summers, especially in low-income neighborhoods where pools and air conditioning were rare. To prevent waste, the city created special caps to limit water flow. The period also marked the peak of the city's fiscal crisis and high crime rates. On November 9, 1989, the Berlin Wall began to fall after decades of dividing Germany. A miscommunication in an official announcement led thousands to border crossings, and guards, without clear instructions, opened the gates. Crowds crossed, celebrating the end of the barrier. The event marked the collapse of the communist bloc in Europe and paved the way for German reunification the following year. This 1942 photo shows a woman operating machinery in an aircraft factory at the Consolidated Aircraft Corporation in Fort Worth, Texas. During World War II, women filled the jobs left by men in factories, breaking social barriers and proving that they could be a vital part of the industrial workforce. In 1967, the Kiss of Life photo captured electrician J.D. Thompson giving mouth-to-mouth resuscitation to his colleague Randall Champion, who had suffered an electric shock on a utility pole. Thompson maintained ventilation until paramedics arrived, saving his life. Champion survived and lived for more than 30 years after the incident. The 2010 BP oil spill in the Gulf of Mexico was one of the largest environmental disasters in history. Millions of barrels of oil were spilled, affecting wildlife, including birds like the pelican shown in the image. The damage to the local ecosystem and fishing industries lasted for years, and cleanup efforts were complex and costly. In 2018, Bill Cosby was sentenced to 3 to 10 years in prison in Pennsylvania for drugging and sexually assaulting Andrea Constand in 2004. More than 50 women accused him of sexual crimes over the years. Cosby, once one of television's most beloved figures, lost his public image after the allegations, becoming the first celebrity convicted of sexual crimes after the Me Too movement. The Magdalene Asylums, also known as Magdalene Laundries, were institutions created to reform women who did not fit the ideal model of a good citizen. In these facilities, women, often orphans or abuse victims, were forced to work under harsh conditions, washing clothes and suffering physical and emotional abuse. These places operated primarily in Ireland and Britain until the late 20th century. On March 26, 1964, the two greatest civil rights leaders of the decade, Martin Luther King Jr. and Malcolm X, met for the only time. After a press conference, Malcolm X approached King, extended his hand, and smiled. The exchange lasted just 1 minute, but was captured by photographers, immortalizing the brief and historic encounter between the two, who had different but equally impactful approaches to the black rights struggle. In 1968, black sanitation workers went on strike in Memphis, Tennessee, demanding better conditions and fair wages. The image shows protesters holding signs reading, "I am a man," emphasizing the fight for dignity and equal rights. This was the last major protest supported by Martin Luther King Jr. before his assassination, occurring less than a week after this moment was captured. In April 1986, an explosion at Reactor 4 of the Chernobyl nuclear plant in Ukraine released massive radiation affecting the Soviet Union and Europe. The city of Pripyat was evacuated, but contamination effects persist today. The disaster was caused by human and design failures. Helicopters dropped sand and lead to contain the fire, while workers sacrificed their lives to prevent an even greater catastrophe. In 1964, Malcolm X, a civil rights icon, lived under constant threat from both the FBI and the Nation of Islam. During this tense period, he was photographed holding a rifle while looking out his window, symbolizing his increasing concern for his safety after breaking ties with the Nation of Islam and becoming a target of multiple threats. On September 11, 2001, President George W. Bush was at a school in Florida when he was informed of the attacks. He was meeting with children when an aide discreetly approached and whispered the news. This historic moment was captured in a photo, marking one of the most defining days in U.S. history. Sharon Stone poses for a photo shoot in 1983 before achieving Hollywood fame. A former model, she appeared in commercials and had minor roles until her breakthrough in Total Recall in 1990. Her defining moment came in 1992 with Basic Instinct, which turned her into a cinematic icon. On April 20th, 1999, Eric Harris and Dylan Klebold entered Columbine High School in Colorado, killing 13 people. The attack was planned for over a year and included explosives, which failed. The tragedy changed school security in the United States and influenced police response protocols for mass shootings. The case also sparked debates on bullying, video games, and gun control. On November 3, 1957, the dog Laika was launched aboard Sputnik 2, becoming the first living being to orbit the Earth. Captured on the streets of Moscow, she was chosen for her resilience. The mission did not plan for her return, and Laika died within hours due to overheating. Her flight advanced space exploration, leading to the first human journey to space in 1961 with Yuri Gagarin. Workers without safety equipment maintained the Woolworth Building in New York in 1926. At 792 feet, it was the tallest building in the world at the time. Designed in a neo-Gothic style, it earned the nickname Cathedral of Commerce. In 1970, the Women's Strike for Equality gathered around 50,000 participants in New York, marking the 50th anniversary of women's suffrage in the U.S. So, organized by the National Organization for Women and led by Betty Friedan, the protest demanded equal rights. Signs displayed slogans like, "Don't cook dinner, starve a rat today." The event fueled discussions on equal pay and reproductive rights. In July 1966, Mao Zedong, at 72 years old, swam in the Yangtze River in a propaganda event to demonstrate his vitality. Shortly after, he launched the Cultural Revolution, mobilizing young Red Guards to eliminate opponents and destroy traditional symbols. Chaos gripped China for a decade, resulting in persecution and over 1 million deaths. The photo reinforced his control before the turmoil. In October 1967, 35,000 anti-war demonstrators gathered in front of the Pentagon. The most striking image was of 17-year-old Jan Rose Casimir offering flowers to soldiers who pointed their bayonets at her. Her peaceful gesture was ignored as protesters were beaten, gassed, and arrested in a historic demonstration. Sophia Loren glances discreetly yet attentively at Jane Mansfield, who is smiling in a low-cut dress. Taken in 1957, the photo was captured at an event in Beverly Hills welcoming Loren to Hollywood. While Loren was already a rising name in Europe, Mansfield stole the spotlight that night. In 1991, the brutal beating of Rodney King, a black construction worker, by white Los Angeles police officers was filmed by a bystander. When the officers were acquitted, riots erupted in Los Angeles. Over 6 days of violence, more than 60 people were killed, and damages exceeded $1 billion. The photo of Alexander Litvinenko, taken in 2006 while he was hospitalized, revealed the impact of polonium-210 poisoning. A former FSB agent, Litvinenko criticized Putin's government, which led him to flee to the United Kingdom. After a meeting with former colleagues, he was poisoned and became severely ill within hours. Litvinenko died on November 23, 2006. James Dean poses next to his Porsche 550 Spyder, nicknamed Little Bastard, at a California gas station just hours before his fatal crash on September 30, 1955. The car, rumored to be cursed, was involved in multiple incidents after the actor's death. At 24, Dean was already a Hollywood icon after Rebel Without a Cause. His untimely death cemented his legendary status. Harvey Weinstein is seen being escorted out of a New York courtroom. The former Hollywood producer was convicted of sexual abuse crimes after numerous accusations from actresses and women in the industry. His conviction was a turning point for the Me Too movement, which exposed sexual harassment cases across various industries and sparked a global conversation about power and abuse. In December 1996, John Benet Ramsey, a child famous for beauty pageants, disappeared from her home in Boulder, Colorado. Her body was found hours later in the basement. The case received intense media coverage and speculation, but remains unsolved, making it one of the most mysterious crimes of the 1990s. In 1968, violence in Vietnam escalated with the Tet Offensive, a series of devastating attacks coordinated by communists, and the My Lai massacre, in which American troops killed hundreds of Vietnamese civilians. The image shows an American soldier during the offensive with a house in flames. The Vietnam War drew massive international condemnation. Tupac Shakur, one of the most influential rappers of the 1990s, was murdered in September 1996 after leaving a Mike Tyson fight. In the photo, he appears with Biggie Smalls, another rap legend, who was killed in 1997. Both cases fueled a rivalry in hip-hop, and their deaths remain shrouded in mystery, continuing to spark speculation. Edmund Kemper laughs as a detective struggles to unlock his handcuffs after his arrest in 1973. Known as the Co-Ed Killer, he murdered 10 people, including his grandparents and mother. Standing 6 feet 9 inches tall and possessing a high IQ, he deceived psychologists into releasing him from a psychiatric hospital at age 21. After surrendering, he helped the FBI develop criminal profiling, influencing studies on serial killers. The Bliss photo, the default wallpaper for Windows XP, was taken by Charles O'Rear in Sonoma County, California. Captured in 1996, it was purchased by Microsoft for an undisclosed amount, but so high that it had to be delivered in person. O'Rear claims the image was not edited. It is estimated that billions of people have seen it, making it one of the most recognized photographs in history. On April 19, 1995, Timothy McVeigh detonated a truck bomb at the Alfred P. Murrah Federal Building in Oklahoma City, killing 168 people, including 19 children. Until then, it was the deadliest terrorist attack in U.S. history, causing a nationwide shock and leading to changes in security policies. The broken levees in New Orleans, seen in this image, show the devastation caused by Hurricane Katrina in 2005. With winds over 175 miles per hour, the disaster flooded 80% of the city, leaving thousands homeless. The levee failures worsened the destruction. Katrina became one of the most catastrophic hurricanes in U.S. history, resulting in over 1,800 deaths. On July 7, 2005, 4 Islamic terrorists carried out a series of bombings in the London Underground, killing 52 people. The images above show the bombers at a train station. The photo, the only one showing all 4 together, was criticized for inconsistencies, such as the lack of facial details. Although Al-Qaeda claimed responsibility, a British investigation raised doubts about the group's direct involvement. Angela Davis became involved with the Black Panthers and the Che Lumumba Club, a wing of the Communist Party focused on black issues, making her a target of the U.S. government. In 1970, she was accused of involvement in a courthouse kidnapping, but fled. She was arrested in 1972 and acquitted of the charges. Her fight for freedom gained international support from figures like John Lennon and Yoko Ono. In 1972, for the first time, women were officially allowed to compete in the Boston Marathon after 76 years of being restricted to men. 8 women participated, and Nina Kushik, wearing bib number F2, won with a time of 3 hours, 10 minutes, and 26 seconds. Before this, women had run unofficially, such as Catherine Switzer in 1967, who entered disguised and was nearly forced out of the race. In 1986, thousands of miners worked at the open-pit gold mine of Serra Pelada in Brazil. The image captured by Sebastião Salgado shows men carrying bags of earth up makeshift ladders, highlighting the scale of manual mining. Published in the New York Times Magazine in 1987, the photos exposed the harsh conditions of the gold rush. After the murders of Nicole Brown Simpson and Ron Goldman, O.J. Simpson was charged with double homicide in 1994. The trial, broadcast live to millions of Americans, was dubbed the Trial of the Century. Simpson's defense sparked intense debate over the U.S. justice system. In 2016, a television series revisited the case and its controversies. Truman Capote poses for a portrait in 1959, the year he began researching In Cold Blood, one of the first nonfiction novels. Author of Breakfast at Tiffany's, he was known for his distinctive style and vibrant social life. His black and white ball in 1966 gathered celebrities and politicians. In later years, he struggled with alcoholism and never completed his final work, Answered Prayers. Frida Kahlo posed for a famous photo in 1937 when the Mexican artist was gaining international recognition. Known for her unique style and deeply personal paintings, Frida challenged beauty standards of her time. She often wore traditional Mexican clothing to assert her identity and cultural heritage. Mike Tyson shakes hands with Dale Hausner, a Phoenix serial killer responsible for 8 murders. Hausner, posing as a sports journalist, took the photo just days before his arrest. Police informed Tyson about the crimes when they visited his gym. Hausner was sentenced to death. The image remains an unusual record of their encounter. At Woodstock in 1969, hippies sold LSD for $1, representing the psychedelic culture of the era. The festival drew over 400,000 people for 3 days of music and chaos with legendary performances by Jimi Hendrix and Janis Joplin. Despite the lack of infrastructure, a peaceful vibe prevailed. Drug use was common, and Woodstock's influence helped shape the countercultural movement of the 1970s. In 2013, photographer Gonzalo Orkin captured a controversial image of a couple kissing inside the Sistine Chapel as part of the Si Quiero series. The exhibition, which featured same-sex couples in Catholic churches, was canceled after the Vatican threatened legal action, citing violations of the Italian Constitution. The Watergate scandal was the biggest political case in the United States during the 1970s. The image shows journalists Bob Woodward and Carl Bernstein at their desks at the Washington Post. They investigated the break-in at the Democratic National Committee headquarters in 1972, uncovering links to Nixon's administration. Their reporting led to Richard Nixon's resignation in 1974. The case resulted in increased political oversight and reinforced investigative journalism's role. In February 2014, Dylan Farrow wrote an open letter in the New York Times, reaffirming her accusation of sexual abuse by her father, Woody Allen, when she was 7 years old. Allen responded, denying the allegations. The exchange of articles generated intense public debate, and since then, actors have faced criticism on social media whenever they accept roles in the director's projects. The image shows a massive crowd during the Woodstock Festival in 1969. Initially planned for 50,000 people, the event drew over 400,000 attendees, becoming a cultural icon. The photo captures the vast audience sitting in front of the stage as artists like Jimi Hendrix and Janis Joplin performed. Woodstock became a landmark of the 1960s. In 1979, the Voyager 1 and 2 probes captured more than 33,000 detailed images of Jupiter and its major moons. The photo shows Io passing in front of the planet, highlighting its volcanic activity, discovered during the mission. The images also revealed Jupiter's atmospheric complexity, including the Great Red Spot. The discoveries expanded knowledge of the solar system and influenced future space exploration. In 1975, a series of photos was taken of 10-year-old Brooke Shields in sensual poses, with makeup and oil for a project titled The Woman in the Child. The images, which depicted child femininity, caused great controversy and were widely criticized. The project sparked discussions about the limits of art and photography involving minors. Dumbo in Brooklyn appears in this photo from the 1970s when it was a decaying industrial area with almost no residents. With abandoned warehouses and cracked streets, it attracted artists looking for cheap rent. By the 2000s, it became one of New York's most valuable neighborhoods, filled with luxury lofts and tech companies. Interestingly, the name Dumbo, meaning down under the Manhattan Bridge overpass, was chosen to deter real estate speculators.